On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 1963. We're going to be taking a look at the Bee Gees, and they're going to be performing Alexander's Ragtime Band and My Old Man's a Dustman. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So I'm going to be jumping into this halfway through. So between the two performances, we're going to be starting out with Alexander's Ragtime Band, but let's get the guys up on screen and see how they get on.
Robin, Morris, and Barry Gibbs are three brothers who started singing in 1958. They've been helped up by Bill Gates, the popular Brisbane disc jockey, hence the name BG, which combines also with Barry Gibbs' initials. They've just been signed by Festival, and here they are, great act from Brisbane, to sing Alexander's Ragtime Band.
Come on in here, come on in here, Alexander's Ragtime Band. Come on in here, come on in here, it's the best band in the land. Well, he can play a bugle call like you never heard before. That's the best band in the land. Come on along, let me take you by the hand. Up to the man, who's the leader of the band. If you want to hear that Swanee River played in ragtime, come on in here, Alexander's Ragtime Band. Come on in here, Alexander's Ragtime Band. Come on in here, it's the best band in the land. Well, he can play a bugle call like you never heard before. That's the best band in the land. Come on along, let me take you by the hand. Up to the man who's the leader of the band. If you want to hear that Swanee River play, come on in here, Alexander's Ragtime Band.
And there we have it. So the first thing that hits you about this particular video, or at least it hits me, is how young they are, how long this was ago, because the Bee Gees are voices of my youth and just a sound that I know so well, and I know their songs so well. And it's an important thing to bring up, that you can be a family of vocalists, you can sing covers, and being a songwriter and being original artist is something entirely different, to actually come up with songs yourselves, and we know that they did that. So obviously starting out, they'd be singing very popular songs here back in 1963. Another thing that strikes me is the age difference between the brothers. First of all, actually, Robin's confidence, because you'll see this in the next song especially, but he was just born for show business. You can tell that he's just so extrovert naturally, the way that he performs. But when I say about their age differences, I mean, these guys, to me, I would say maybe Barry was 17 or 18 years of age here, and then maybe Robin and Morris around maybe 10 or 11. But in fact, the age gap is 3 years, and here Barry is maybe 16. So it means that Robin and Morris are 13. So I thought they were actually a lot younger than that. The other thing that you'll find on YouTube are performances of the Bee Gees when they're a lot younger, I mean around this kind of age, but Barry's voice hasn't broken yet, so he's got that very high voice going on. Interestingly here, his voice has broken, so now he's got that more baritone range, and we're hearing his chest voice, which is something that we don't really get a lot of when we've looked at the Bee Gees before on the channel, analysing their vocals individually, which we have done. We've broken them down with the pitch monitoring software and isolated them. And I have isolated the vocals here as well, so we might jump into that a little bit later on. But it's interesting that at a particular point in this performance, Barry hits his reinforced falsetto sound, but he's not singing while he does it. And I know that he said that when they started, getting into that disco period, that they started to experiment with different sounds, and then he realized that he could do this with his voice and make these sounds that were really high up, that sounded like falsetto, but he's got a reinforced falsetto, so he's got rid of the airiness in the sound. And this is why it's so difficult for a lot of people to place his voice, and it is just generally hard to place his voice because of the sound of it. It sounds like head voice, but the way that he goes up there, for me, it's more of a reinforced falsetto, which is getting into that different falsetto register, but then reinforcing it, like leaning into it, taking the air out of the sound by adding, as much compression in the sound as possible. But it's really difficult to do that with falsetto. The other thing you'll notice about Barry's guitar playing is that he's got his guitar in open tuning. Even though it looks like he's doing chord shapes and bar chords with maybe the thumb over the top of the guitar, he's actually using what looks like his little finger and third finger to bar across the guitar to play chords, just literally barring across one fret at a time, moving up and down. But anyway, let's jump back into it and check out My Old Man's a Dustman.
Now here's a little story. To tell it is a must, about this unsung hero that moves away the dust. Some people make a fortune and others own a mint, but my old man don't earn much. In fact, he's flipping skint. Oh, my old man's a dustman, he wears a dustman's hat. He wears cob-blimey trousers and he lives in a council flat. He looks a proper nana, his great big hobnail boots. He has a job to pull them up and he calls them daisy roots. Now some folks get tips for Christmas and some of them forget. So when he picks their bins up, he spills some on the step. Well, one old man got nasty and to the council wrote, next time my old man went round there, he thumped him up the throat. Oh, my old man's a dustman, he wears a dustman's hat. He wears cob-blimey trousers and he lives in a council flat. So my old man's a dustman, he's got an heart of gold. He got married recently, though he's 86 years old. I said, now hang on, Dad, you're getting past your prime. But he says, when you get my age, it helps you pass the time. Oh, my old man's a dustman, he wears a dustman's hat. He wears cob-blimey trousers and he lives in a council flat. Now one day whilst in a hurry, he missed a lady's bin. He hadn't gone but a few yards when she chased after him. What do you think you're playing? She cried out from the yard. You missed me, am I too late? No, jump upon the cart. Oh, my old man's a dustman, he wears a dustman's hat. He wears cob-blimey trousers and he lives in a council flat. Well, they found a tiger's head one day, nailed to a piece of wood. That tiger looked quite miserable, as I suppose he should. Just then from out a window, a voice began to wail. Said, oi, where's me tiger's head? Forward from his tail. Oh, my old man's a dustman, he wears a dustman's hat. He wears cob-blimey trousers and he lives in a council flat. Now if you see a dustman, all looking all pale and sad, don't kick him in the dustbin, it might be my old dad.
And there we have it. I mean, one of those light-hearted tunes. Don't kick him in the dustbin. But anyway, getting into, the showmanship side of it, it's great because they're putting so much into it from that perspective, especially appearing on TV. This would have been huge. because back in these days, all you had really was TV that put you ahead of the artists that were being heard on the radio, and there was obviously no moving images with that, so people didn't really get to know the band and couldn't see the personality of the performances. Whereas on TV, if you have that showmanship side of it, it just really makes the most of that opportunity to endear yourself to a huge audience. I mean, this is great, this bit where he just wipes his pretend tears on Morris. Let's have a watch. I mean, it's such a tiny detail, but it shows that when they're performing, they are confident. And sometimes what you have with performers that are at a young age, they don't have this confidence yet. And it's almost like they can go on stage, and because they're now in front of a lot of people and they're not with their parents, they kind of rely on that link to their parents, and kind of getting up in front of people, they're a little bit self-conscious and a little bit scared of performing. But this is where you can just tell that at this age, the Bee Gees were already ready for the stage. And to do this full time, it's something that they obviously enjoy doing, and all these little aspects really show off the fact that they are genuinely enjoying it. It's not as if they've been told by their parents, right, you've got to go out and look like you're enjoying doing this, because that would never work. If Robin was told to do this and he didn't really enjoy doing it, you wouldn't have this level of showmanship going on at such a young age. But when we go through this, I'm just going to take out the guitar. You will be able to hear that bass very lightly in the background being played, as well as a little bit of percussion, but we'll take that all out and just have a listen to these vocals, because where we heard that little bit of falsetto, this is the performance that I've seen, and the only one that I've seen from this early on where he accesses this sound that he's going to be using later on in his career for so many monster hits. But it just shows that he can do this. He can get up into this falsetto sound and reinforce it.
In a hurry, he missed the lady's bin. He hadn't gone but a few yards when she chased after him. What do you think you're playing?
And there we have it. So, I mean, that is great, because obviously he's not singing at this point, but this is just the tiny insight that we have, that we'll know that he'll start using this voice and starting to sing with it. And not only, sing, but have vibrato, probably more tremolo, which I have mentioned in other videos, where the tremolo's the air, that typical kind of which is kind of going bringing the vocal cords together and giving it tremolo rather than vibrato. That tremolo sound, he'll start to put that then into this reinforced falsetto. So again, I mean, it's great. We might listen to that in slow motion. It's interesting, because you can actually hear a little bit of that telltale falsetto sound because of the air. There's definitely a hint of air in that sound that I think then, as he progressed, he then cleaned that sound up even more. I mean, it's still a pretty clear falsetto sound. I mean, it does sound pretty accurate to a female's voice. As they advance, as they age, obviously Robin's voice then sat in that clean head voice place, which was just great for their overall sound. And then Morris obviously took the lower end, kind of that baritone range, but we kind of had baritone and then kind of high bari from Robin, and then you've got all of those notes that are up there in the male tenor range that Barry would be singing in that reinforced falsetto sound. But as I now take this forward, and again we can listen out for Barry's chest voice, because that's what he's using here, the voice that he doesn't then use later on.
Got an heart of gold. He got married recently, though he's 86 years old.
And again, putting on this London accent, I mean, it's great. Obviously, I know that they were born here and then emigrated over to Australia, but just giving it the personality in the vocal obviously adds to the story, and this is a huge part of it with this kind of song.
I said, now hang on, Dad. You're getting past your prime, But he says when you get my age it helps to pass the time. Oh, my old man's a dustman, he wears a dustman's hat. He wears top-limey trousers and he lives in a council flat.
And we have, of course, this close-knit harmony. It's an interesting thing to point out about this performance when we've gone from that first song where they're editing their vocals in order to not be as offensive, not be as strong. And when we listen to it,
it's the best band in the land. Well, he can play a bugle call like you never heard before. That's the best band in the...
Listen for that dynamic drop now, how we've been, fully in there with the do-do-dos, but then we now come into this softer element and they all match dynamically. Like I said in that video on the Lennon Sisters, that's a huge part of it, matching your voices volume-wise, and also that helps keep it in the same place expressively so that every voice is on the same page. You haven't got one voice that's too loud and therefore sounding a bit shouty, whereas the other two voices might sound calmer. They're all sounding in the same place. It's that land. That's what Barry's doing with his voice. Let's jump back into it.
Come on along. Come on along.
Come on along. Come on along. It isn't actually, that high when we listen to the harmony lines, but they will go a lot higher than that. But still that, come on along, come on along. It's a lighter sound that they're giving it to blend it all together.
Let me take you by the hand. To the man, who's the leader of the band. If you want to hear, that's one ear ever. Played in ragtime, come on here.
And there we had it, that they're in ragtime, that there. You can hear the... Barry's taking his chest voice up to that place. But it's these tiny details of ending vocal phrases at the same time. Something that the Lennon Sisters had in that analysis video that I did, where they matched their slides in order to get it so spot on. Interestingly, that's something that the Bee Gees at this point were still working on. They were still blending their slides, and they weren't exactly there yet at this point, but they would obviously get there over the next couple of years. So it shows obviously a really early point in their development, and it's great to look back this far and see them this young performing. So thank you guys for suggesting this particular video for me to take a look at. I hope you have enjoyed it. As always, keep the suggestions and requests coming in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys at the next one. Rock!